I just wanted to pull this phone out and start chit-chatting to the camera because I think that's what I do best in moments of inspiration. But I've been reading a lot of books to improve the quality of my relationship with my girlfriend. I'm reading a book called Mate, Becoming the Guy That Women Want. I read one called Getting the Love You Want, and a separate one other than that it was called When Men Behave Badly, and that just talked about like the evolutionarily psychological reasons for why some men do horrible, awful shit. And of these three books that I've sort of skimmed through and read about, I wanted to talk about the ones that were the most impactful for me and the ones that I think would help the younger version of myself out a lot more, especially when I was young, heartbroken, and sort of focused on my girlfriend's validation, sort of feeling like I was begging on my knees for her attention rather than actually chasing a vision, chasing a purpose, and ultimately being someone who wasn't just a wet fucking blanket. So I think the reason why a lot of men become a wet blanket is, one, because of an attachment style that they had when they were a kid. Me personally, I didn't have much of a father figure, and so it affected me a lot getting in relationships, and it still does affect me. But the important part is recognizing that, but also not having a good enough vision. And this is a book, or this is a concept that's explored in Think and Grow Rich, and it talks about how if you don't have a purpose in life, your purpose should be first getting in the best shape that you possibly can, getting your sleep right, getting your health right, getting your nutrition right, and then everything else after that will kind of fall into place. And there's psychologically backed reasons for that as well. There's a psychological concept. I was a psych major and I've read a lot of books about it because it just fascinates me. There's a psychological concept called Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is essentially a pyramid with at the top being basically fulfilling your greatest potential and transcending above just everything, just being an absolute killer. You know, people like Arnold Schwarzenegger, people who you know the names of, they would be people at the top of the pyramid. And in order to reach the higher levels of that hierarchy of needs, you need to have at the lowest levels all of this stuff met. And it's windy in this town. I fucking hate it here. Excuse my French. But you need to have your physiological needs met, so food, water, shelter, right? So think about when you need to use the bathroom. You're not thinking about chasing your purpose. You're just thinking about using the bathroom. It shuts off a layer of your psychology in your brain. It basically deadens an area of your consciousness. So we can equate physiological stuff to being like using the bathroom, as well as just having food, shelter, and water, right? A homeless person's not worrying about becoming a celebrity. They're just worrying about having shelter, right? And so once you get those things at the bottom, above that, physiological needs, it becomes like shelter needs. So, you know, shelter. And then after that, it's like safety. So is this shelter actually secure? Above that, it's like love and belonging, friends, stuff like that. I'm butchering it for sure, but you get what I'm saying. And so as you advance up the hierarchy of needs, you have a new objective to go towards, right? And what many people are stuck on is the level directly below esteem needs. They need esteem, they need respect from other people, but they just can't seem to get it because they don't know what to do. And when you're always focusing, what's up, brother? Yeah, I'm just speaking how. Yeah, you as well, bro. And so when you're always focusing on needing respect, but you don't know how to get it, then you're always capped. You're always capped at your level of consciousness. Whereas when you can start to get in shape, start to take care of your health, fitness, everything like that, that is when you begin to actually unlock esteem. You begin to get respect from other people because you're not like a fucking lard ass. And as much as we like to push the cult that is body positivity, if you're obese, you're not going to do well in life. Just frankly put, I think anybody with a frontal lobe can realize that. And so once you get your sleep right, your nutrition right, and everything else below that right, as well as like, you know, like food safety, belonging, everything like that, that is when you can begin to unlock higher levels of consciousness, right? Similarly to going to the bathroom and not being able to think about anything else other than going to the bathroom. It's just like that, except all you can't think about anything other than getting status, getting a girlfriend, getting stuff like that. And now, as somebody who has been on sort of a self-improvement journey for about 4.5 years now, I have a loving girlfriend and I'm chasing higher levels than just esteem, although I would say I'm still on that level, and that's why I'm like creating these videos right now. is to get respect from other people, is to cultivate money to be able to do the stuff that I want to do, but to also help other people and convey my value to other sources. That is what I'm focusing on the most. But had I not been focusing on my health, fitness, and my nutrition, I would just be thinking about most likely chasing the next high. And that's sort of my theory that I have about addiction, which is the reason why many people just continuously fall into it, is because they associate their addiction, their drugs, alcohol, stuff like that, with their sense of belonging, right? It feels good to go out to a bar and get shit-faced, and every single time you go out to a bar and get shit-faced, you feel like you belong, right? But the problem about that is that you can never really transcend above that because it's not permanent. It's shallow. You know, I always think about the people who say they need a drink to socialize. Well, if you always need a drink to socialize, then that means you can't socialize when you're sober, right? And so you can't. Your brain is mucked up. You're inebriated, right? Inebriated meaning you're fucked up. Your brain is, you're high. You're high, you're drunk, whatever. You're on whatever drugs you're on. And it keeps you from really being able to consciously be aware of the higher level. And that is what the gift of sobriety has given me as well, is once you can begin to cultivate social belonging, cultivate social status, I suppose you could say, and make your way up the status hierarchy because you've gotten in better shape, because you've proved as a valuable resource towards the people around you, because your friends approve of you and they think you're a good person, because you've instilled discipline in yourself, you've instilled good traits, you have good values, you have good empathy, you have good hold on what is good for you. That is when you can actually start to chase something higher than just the next drug, the next woman to just fuck for the sake of fucking, and stuff like that. And so the advice that I would give to my younger self, who was getting kind of dragged on my balls by the girl that I was with because the woman became my purpose instead of my own health and fitness and my own personal growth, would be to focus on that instead. And I've noticed as well that women also prefer when you focus on your goal over them, because I mean, think about this, for example. This isn't a book that I read, but think about, the standard case of like the man going off to war and the woman being like, no, don't go out to war, don't go out to war. And then the guy's like, no, I got to fight for my country. It's like, oh, it's sort of like an archetypal thing that everyone can kind of understand, like that concept of like, you're a hero, stuff like that. Well, if the man was to turn back and be like, you know what, actually, I'm going to stay for you, like, fuck the country, the girl would kind of be like, like you're kind of a pussy, right? And so I feel like it kind of aligns with sort of that in regards to, and I'm saying this like I'm an expert. I am no expert, but I'm just giving advice to the younger version of myself, as I said, who was anxiously attached, felt like my whole life depended on a woman's validation and other people's validation, and it just wasn't serving me. And I've also got a buddy who recently has gone through a breakup, and I'm giving him this exact same advice. And I just want to give it to y'all because it's something that has truly helped me. And even in this relationship, you guys have seen me not posting as much, and it's because I've focused a lot on taking trade-offs from my personal development to help develop this relationship. It's something that I value, right? And that's also an important concept, is realizing that there are no sacrifices, just trade-offs, right? So if you actually want to get in shape, you're probably going to have to trade off drinking on the weekends. You're probably going to have to trade off, junk food. You're probably going to have to trade off, football Sundays with the boys, just when you slam like 18, 12 packs. It's not a sacrifice, it's just a trade-off. So it's for the life that you want to live, the women you want to attract, and ultimately what your goals in life are. I feel like a lot of those goals you have in life become revealed once you become sober. And that's what I didn't realize as well. And I'm going on a complete tangent, but I hope y'all are following with me. I went to London and I did a study abroad. And for the longest time up until then, from about the time I was 15 to 18, the time I was 15 to 18, I was stoned pretty consistently. Like I do it once a week, stuff like that. And then once I got to London, I didn't have any, dealers, anything like that, any plugs, whatever you want to call it. And then all of a sudden I began to conceptualize of a higher calling, a higher purpose. And I also got around higher status individuals, right? Hanging out with people who were, millions of followers on Instagram and social media influencers. Like I have photos with like Alex Eubank, and I had like genuine conversations with a lot of the people from Young LA, like Brody Shreds, Gurmer, who is one of the creators of it. He's like that Indian guy. If you follow with Young LA stuff, they're just a fitness influencer clothing brand. And realizing that they were normal people, sort of cultivating my self-belief within them, gave me a higher goal to aim for in life. And that's also part of why I make these videos now, because I realize that it's really like, anyone can do it. But it's also because this self-belief that I've curated is something I want to give to y'all. And the wisdom in my fucking young 20 years of age that I've cultivated that has been helpful has been putting your health and fitness over everything else. And then everything else sort of starts to fall in place. Like, you can feel like the biggest bum ever, but if you're in good shape, you're going to be able to handle it a lot better, right? If you're eating good food, you're getting good sleep, you don't give depression and anxiety a fighting chance, right? And that's just the reality of it, right? And then after that, you can start getting off all these medications that you're on, all these vices, stuff like that. You can then sort of start to conceptualize of a higher being. And especially when it involves women, they will come. Most men are invisible. It's because most men are kind of pussies. And not that that's a bad thing, but most men just don't understand fundamentally, nor do they want to understand how women work. They just see them as objects and they just try and win them like a game. And it doesn't work because they can sense you're bullshitting, right? Sort of like y'all when I make some of my videos, and you can tell I'm bullshitting. But the women will come. I always talk about it on my Instagram stories, and you can follow me if you want to. It's in the description. But I talk about building a garden, right? Because I used to post a lot of my physique on social media just to try to inspire people. And most people, that actually just aroused envy, I think. And I don't need to show off anyways. Like, I'm in pretty good shape. I'd rather show off through using my personality and the way that I present myself. But I talk about building a garden, right? Building a garden for the butterflies to come. And it doesn't just mean that, well, I got in shape, why aren't the women coming? Like, you got to work on your social skills and being not a fucking weirdo and, staying away from pornography and stuff like that as much as you can. But if you're chasing women, and then once you get a woman, that was your only goal, and then you start to sort of get soft, you'll lose exactly what you had, right? And it's sort of this concept that radiates across many fields of disciplines, which is, what else was I going to say? That the current moment is an effect, right? So the way my body looks right now, it looks good because in the past I've eaten really good food, right? These past couple of days I've been eating like shit, and sooner or later I'm going to start to see the effects that had on me, right? But your thoughts start first, and then later the effects come. So, I used to have friends I used to have a friend who, he owned a very successful, as far as I know, what do they call it? Contracting business. But he had a story where he almost passed away, and then he got sober, started building his business up. He had like a near-death experience, sort of like how I had a near-death experience, and it made me kind of want to start taking assertion for my life. But then he started going out on the weekends and drinking way more on the weekends, and I was like, hey man, like, the only reason your business is doing well right now is because in the past you had been sober all these weekends. You weren't pissing your life away. You weren't neglecting your health, stuff like that. I don't know how he's doing now because I didn't feel like he was supporting me and my ego got in the way. But my guess is it starts to affect you. Like, I see him around. His health looks a bit worse than it was when we were friends, stuff like that. And it's not to say, I wish him the best, of course, but it's all to get the message across that this current moment is an effect, right? And it comes from the stuff that you cultivate, right? And so if you set your sights way higher on something other than just a girl, right, you're gonna land among the stars, right? And so that's the biggest thing. I mean, when you set large goals, the means will take care of themselves, right? So if you set a huge goal that's like, I'm gonna build this business, well, because of me building this business where I help people get in shape and I help build self-belief and, using psychological concepts, because I made the goal of building that business, naturally as a byproduct, I have to become in the best shape I've ever been in my life right now. I have to learn as much as I possibly could in my entire life. And it kind of just happens on autopilot because I've sort of programmed my brain's goal setting mechanism towards that goals. But when you set your goals small, you're also going to land among the stars, right? And so if your goal is just to get a girl and then you get them and then you're like, oh, I got it, then you're going to lose it, right? And so I also want to encourage you to do that as well, is set your sights high. It's like, I want this type of girl that has these traits. I want this type of car that's like this, and fuck the material stuff. It tortures your soul. Like I've chased that stuff for too long, and it's not how I want to live anymore. But, you know, I want these traits in my personal life. I want this sort of style. I mean, everything I'm doing right now, I wrote down 2 years ago, right? I say, oh, I'm gonna have this type of girl with these type of traits. I am going to dress well, but in comfortable athleisure wear, right? I have completely formulated the person that I am right now. And it's because I set my goals high, and I'm not at my goal yet. I haven't reached my goals yet. But once you set your goals, you can start to do the journey. And if the journey is set on mediocre sites, like, oh, I'm gonna get a girlfriend, that's my main goal for this year, then it doesn't, I mean, you get the girlfriend and then you're like, okay, now what do I do? And you never reset, you know, a further goal to chase. And then eventually you lose the girl because you turn into a pussy, because you only cared about having the nice girl, right? Rather than, okay, well, I want this and the girl. So, you know, if the girl is, you know, becoming distant, so to speak, you're like, it's not your foundation, right? It's not your backbone, because that was the only thing you wanted, was just to have a girlfriend, because you think that a girlfriend will solve all your problems. Guess what, bro? It will not, right? Everyone's gonna have problems, but you just need to have, and this is what my buddy Leo said to me, you just need to have bigger problems to worry about. Like, if all you got to worry about is a girl, whether she likes you or not, you need to set your sights on something higher. You need to set your sights on, how can I become somebody where, you know, even if this girl doesn't like me, she leaves me or whatever the fuck, a billion other girls can fucking come my way, right? Because I've built myself up to be so valuable, such a empathetic guy, such a good person, that my value has gone up. And I'm not saying to bet on that, right? Because my girl's probably watching this video right now thinking I'm a fucking piece of shit. No, probably not. She doesn't think that. But it's stuff like that I think really would have helped me when I was like 16 going through heartbreak. If I had just focused on doing my own shit, chasing my own goals, and not really caring like what she said. I mean, caring as much as I, you know, needed to, it would have saved me a lot of heartbreak. And so, you know, if you're a man and you're out of shape, I encourage you to fuck all your other goals, right? I mean, me personally, I value my health even over like education, over my educational prowess in terms of a university, right? I still educate myself daily. Like I've been listening to an audiobook like 4 hours already today. Like I just have a thirst for knowledge, but it's also because that's the type of person I have to be to reach the goals that I want to become. And naturally, that's the type of traits I started to have. But anyways, fuck, I'm just rambling again. But if you're out of shape, your goal should be getting in shape. Your goal should be learning how to set habits, reading a book like Atomic Habits. It should be not self-improvement for the sake of self-improvement, but self-improvement because, you know, in order to become the person you want to be, you know, you have to do those things. And I want you right now to imagine a situation where your life is ending and really reflect upon the things you're doing. It's like, damn, because most people really think they had a lot more time, but anyone's life can end in any second. And so my just word of advice is to spend it, you know, set good goals, work towards them, have a vision and see it very clearly and chase towards it, and allow that vision to cultivate the type of life that you want to have within it. Because I guarantee you, although I don't have as much money as I'd like to have, as much success in terms of Instagram followers as I'd like to have, or as many friends as I'd like to have right now, I still am happy with the man who I am because I set goals, because I'd way rather be crying in my 2001 Toyota Camry with 250,000 miles in it, in good shape and proud of the body that I've built, not ashamed of like having shirts that show my man boobs, over crying in that same car being fat as shit. And it's just little stuff like that makes your quality of life so much better. And so I strongly encourage you, you know, if you're going, whatever you're going through, the biggest cure most likely is probably just getting your nutrition better, getting your health better, and getting your fitness better. And I can go into videos explaining this stuff way more in depth. There's a video on my account called like Nutrition Essentials. Watch that. That's something that's in like one of my programs that I have for clients. But this stuff truly does make your life a lot better. And it doesn't solve all your problems, but getting in shape as a male solves a good 95% of your problems, especially if you don't turn into a fucking gym cell. Like, especially if you're getting in shape because of the values and the will that it gives you, rather than just for narcissistic, like, oh, I'm so perfect sort of masturbation level of bodybuilding and stuff like that. Right? Because girls do not like that. In fact, one of the first things my girl did when she met me, when she found out I went to the gym, was be scared, because a lot of guys are fucking horrible narcissistic assholes that lift a lot. So don't be one of those guys. I've been one of those guys in the past, and I'm improving. But yeah, I mean, focusing on your health, fitness for you and for your goals, and not for anyone else. Not because you're trying to spite someone, although spite is a very powerful energy, but doing it for yourself and the future of yourself, doing it for the younger version of yourself who was overweight or who was too skinny, suffered with body image issues. And the gym and getting in shape, it's so much more than just getting in shape. You know, like, it teaches you willpower, it teaches you discipline, it teaches you so many values that can be brought outside of the gym. And I think lifting weights is really the catalyst for a good life. I think most people who are successful entrepreneurs started in some sort of discipline, whether it be like jujitsu or weightlifting or just going to the gym, because it shows you that hard work over time does produce results. Whereas most people, I think, who don't have the gift of having actually gotten in shape, they don't really realize that habits compound over time. And if you just start today and keep going and get into the sort of hypnotic rhythm that habits get you into, it can get to the point where you look back after 4 years and you're in shape, you look good, you're proud of yourself, and you're like, how the fuck did that even happen? Because that's to the point where I'm at. And so all you got to do is just get your identity aligned with the version of yourself that does the things that you need to do to become the person you need to become to reach your goals. And then naturally, as a byproduct, you'll become way better. So I don't know, again, rambling, but some calls to action, I suppose I could say at this video, is really focus on the shit that matters, right? Sleep, nutrition, and your fitness is probably the largest thing. Just some sort of physical exercise, whatever it is going to be the number one largest catalyst for improving your life, your dating life, your life in every single category. Starts with just getting a very few amount of basic principles together. And if you want me to make a video about the basic principles more in depth, I can 100% do that. I'm not showing that I'm a complete, I'm not a fucking expert guru. I'm not the king of health or whatever, but this is the stuff that has helped me a lot, because I was in a state where I was completely down bad, miserable, hating life, burning myself in the shower, overweight, wanting to kill myself. And now my life has a lot more life in it. And there is certain things and certain themes I think that radiate across. God damn, I hate this town. I'm gonna move out one of these fucking days. I live in a state where like the suicide rate is astronomically high, and I'm 95% sure it's because of the fucking wind here. But anyways, boys, if you can even fucking hear me speak, again, excuse my friend. Yeah, Godspeed, and just comment down below if you like these videos. Subscribe if you're wanting to see more, and check out my Instagram, even though I'm posting on it less, because I was doing a lot of it for social validation, and I fucking hate that. I hate being like that. So anyways, have a good night. I'm gonna have a good night. I'm gonna go to sleep after this.